It's time to go beyond the headlines, cause I don't put in overtime just so I can headline. Okay, now it's Fox Sports, I'm live with Renee. Going hard every day, sports rapping every play. Different segments for your favorites, coming at you daily with positive vibes. Yeah, we some game changers. Basketball, football, soccer, with different interviews, you never know who may pop up. Listen, only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington.
Welcome back to our Positive Vibes Only segment here on Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington. Joining us from warm, sunny Hawaii, we've got Vicky Heldreich Durand. Welcome to the show. She's an author, she's an international surfing champ, and that title reigns over anything. I don't care when it was, but from 1957. And Vicky, I'm so happy to have you here to get into your book, which is about your mom, surfing, and so much more. So welcome.
Oh, thank you, Renee. Thank you for having me. And it's a real thrill to be able to share the story with your audience.
Yes. Well, before we even get started, congrats on your first TV debut that you had earlier in February. And I'm hoping that you can.
On Hawaii News Now.
Yes, that is awesome. And now you get to tell your story here about what inspired you. And I'm curious to know what inspired you to write about your mom. You have a book, Wave Woman, The Life and Struggles of a Surfing Pioneer. Let's get into it.
Well, my mother was the best mother ever, but beyond that, it's the story of a woman with who was a sportswoman, and she had an amazing amount of fortitude, persistence, and curiosity, and she believed that anything exciting was worth trying at least once. She was the granddaughter of Mormon recruits in Salt Lake City. That's where she grew up, and she grew up playing basketball. She was competitive to the max. So she competed in roller skating, ice skating, and track, and she was voted the most valuable athlete in her senior year of high school in Salt Lake City. But she came to Hawaii to visit her sister. And at the age of 41, she took up surfing. We had gone for a canoe ride at Waikiki, and there's surfers on both sides of the canoe. And she said, I think that's a sport that I want to try. So she did. And she was on the first Hawaiian surfing team invited to Lima, Peru. But what got her there was after a few years of surfing at Waikiki, she ventured out to Makaha, which was known for the big waves, and it's a big, strong, powerful break. And she entered the 1956 Makaha International Surfing Championships, where she won the paddling, and she took second place in the surfing. So then that took her on to the Hawaiian surfing team, and they went to Lima, to Club Waikiki in Lima, and where she won there and came back with a big trophy. But she had an amazing life where she broke glass ceilings. She found meaning as a dental hygienist. She was in the second class to graduate out of University of Southern California in Los Angeles. She was a sculptor, a jeweler. She built houses. So she surfed, and after surfing, she was a fisherwoman, and then she became a potter. And then when she became blind due to macular degeneration, and she felt like she had to create, she had to do something worthwhile, and then she wrote haiku poetry. And I just felt that this was, a story that needed to be told, because she was really an amazing mentor and a positive thinker, and she was just an amazing person to be around. so that's why I wrote the book. She broke glass ceilings. She just felt that it was never too late to do what you want to do and pursue a dream, and don't let anybody stop you. So,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, wow. That is incredible. And we were talking prior to the start of the show, and you were giving me some background on surfing and in Hawaii. And a lot of people just know surfing was what it is today from what you see on TV. If you've never had the opportunity to go to Hawaii, like myself, but you actually you grew up around it. You were a part.
Right.
You've seen it firsthand. And
Right.
so for your mom and for yourself to be successful in surfing is not an easy feat, as you mentioned. So can you
Right.
give our listeners a background? I think it's so important to hear about. We focus a lot on women empowerment, women trailblazing women in their fields, but I don't think enough people know about trailblazing women in surfing. So I'd
Yeah.
love for you to highlight on the history of it and kind of what it has become today and where it started.
All right. Well, she came to Hawaii to visit her sister in the summer of 1954 and took her first surfing lesson and just absolutely fell in love with it. But prior to that, surfing, women surfed at Waikiki in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, but not very many people surfed because surfing was just in the 50s when we surfed, it was just coming into the Renaissance, and because it had actually died out. It was big in ancient Hawaii, and the Hawaiians had contests, they bet on it. Women surfed, men surfed, they courted surfing, and there was, when the great Mahele, and there was a period called the Makahiki, and that's what Hawaiians, they just took time for their sports, whether it was surfing or the other many sports that they did. And then when that ended, the great Makahiki ended, surfing and the missionaries came. The missionaries really discouraged surfing because they surfed naked, and they didn't like that. And plus, they figured it was a waste of time. They should be studying the Bible. And there was also smallpox. A lot of Hawaiians died with the smallpox. And so surfing kind of died out. But when she started surfing, and actually she said she was bitten by the surfing bug. So when she surfed, she said, Vicky, she said, and we surfed together I started when I was 17. She said, this is really going to be big. This sport is really going to take off, and you need to keep notes because you're going to want to write about this someday. She was so smart, about that. So there was one contest here in Hawaii, and it was called the Makaha International Surfing Contest. So after surfing at Waikiki, which is often a pretty gentle wave, she had met a man that had just built a house out of Makaha Beach, where they have the big waves. They used to be 30 feet, 20 to 30 feet, and they had this contest. And so in 1956, she went out and entered the contest and took first in the paddling, and then took second in the surfing. So that's kind of what got her started. And yeah, that was it. And then after she was on the first surfing team to Lima, she came back, and growing up, she always dangled little carrots in front of me. Well, if you swim across the pool, you can have a bite. I'll get you a bite. So she said, if you can win the 1957 surfing contest, I think we can get invited back to Peru. So I said, okay. So I won in 1957. And then in 1960, the two of us were invited to Lima, Peru, to
Oh, wow.
interest the women in surfing. Nobody surfed down there. No women surfed down there. And the Club Waikiki was a very exclusive club. And the men wanted their women to surf, but the women thought it was too masculine, or I don't know what at that point.
Right.
But anyway, so our job was we spent 6 weeks there at the club, and we just went down there and surfed and made it look fun and something that they could do, and socialized, and we had a wonderful time and met all these amazing Peruvians who became actually lifelong friends. And it was the trip of a lifetime for the both of us. And so that was one aspect, and it was pretty amazing to surf with her, and then take that trip, which seemed
Hmm.
very far away, and just be together. And so that was a very amazing big part of my life. And I just felt like like Maya Angelou said, there's no greater burden than to have a story within, an untold story within you.
Hmm.
So that was a lot of my motivation for writing the book, to tell people about her and to give her messages for other women, because she was very strong, but she wasn't overpowering. She
Right.
she lifted other people up, and listened to people, and it was just, her story needed to be told. So that's what Wave Women, the life and struggles of a surfing pioneer, is about. And she was one of the very few women to go to Makaha. So
Hmm.
that's where I got the pioneer, that she was a pioneer out there. And
Wow.
Makaha kind of put the big wave surfing in Hawaii on the map when there was a picture of a 25-foot wave at Makaha that was in the Los Angeles Times in 1956, I think it was. And so that brought a whole bunch of Californians over, and it just has gotten ignited. And then to have Duke Kahanamoku 100 years ago, as he was competing and winning in the Olympics in 1912 and 1920, he envisioned surfing in the Olympics. And he's actually considered the father of surfing. And and then Fernando Aguirre just spent 2 decades and 12,000 hours getting surfing into the Olympics. And then
Hmm.
our Carissa Moore, who's from Hawaii, will be going. So it's very exciting. And the thing about surfing is it takes a lot of strength, and the physical strength, I think, leads to the mental strength, and making decisions and holding your spot on the wave, because there's a lot of talk about men trying to take over. Even now, there was a bill that just signed here in Hawaii, because they giving women equal rights to the large wave contests out on the North Shore. They were keeping women out of those. And so that bill just passed because the women they needed to compete here rather than having to travel. Some of them didn't have the money to go to California and the other places where they had to compete to go up on the in the competition. So
Right.
they just passed that bill 2 weeks ago, and the women that are trying to get into the big tow-in surfing, and the men tried to keep them out. They said they're too emotional and they don't belong there. And blah, blah, blah. Well, I think a woman, that is actually a different sport when they're surfing these 40, 50, 60 foot waves.
Mm-hmm.
They have to have flotation devices and tow in and all of that. But at least, it should be equal. And
Absolutely.
it took a lot of women here in front of the city council to get that bill passed, and now they're sort of still stalling along. Well, we don't know if
Wow.
how do we fit it in, and all the usual stuff that it takes to move forward with any kind of new thinking.
Mm-hmm. And what I love about so many of the things you touched on is you talk about family, and that's something that, you are essentially, not only have you had the opportunity to have these incredible experiences with your mom who started surfing at the age of 41 with you and your sister, but now you're also passing that story along for your future generations, for other families to read. And that's something that storytelling component of not letting your story and your life die with you, but having something that people can remember you by, that's in your book. And
Right.
that's incredible. And also the fact that your mom, and even surfing in general, women in surfing, that a lot of people might not realize, with you talking about the bill and the gender roles that are still being fought today, is the fact that we're not done yet with women's rights and with equality and everything.
Right.
We're still dealing with it, across different aspects and areas. And I know a lot of us will focus on women's sports with basketball. And, I talked about it on my show a couple weeks ago, or soccer or whatever. But there are so many areas in society, as you touched on, with surfing being one of them, that we're still playing catch up. There's still
Right.
work to be done. We're
Right.
not there yet. And it sounds like your mom really instilled a lot of great, valuable lessons, life lessons of being successful, of being a female in you. And I'm curious to know if there's any that you'd be willing to share that you've really taken beyond surfing to apply to your life.
Yeah, well, surfing does apply to life because,
Mm-hmm.
when you're out in the break, there's a wave and there's men there waiting to catch it. And, you're there with them, and you've got to carve out your space, and you've got to be assertive and say, okay, this is my wave.
Mm-hmm.
You can be on it too, but you're not going to push me out of it. You're not going to push me off of it. And you're not going to intimidate me out of it. And so there's a certain assertiveness that it creates when you carve out your own space in a surfing area, because you have to. It wasn't that bad, but it was somewhat where you go, no, this is my wave, I'm
Yeah.
taking it. Back away, buddy, you're not getting me off this. So it and it's challenging. I think it's a challenging sport when you get into the bigger waves and you have to make decisions. um a lot of things. I think it's gave me a lot of strength for my life, different areas.
Mm-hmm.
I Mother's, when she said she would like to try anything exciting at least once, and she liked challenges, and that's rubbed off. I like this book was a challenge. It took a village to get this book together, and years and persistence, and I think that I just felt like I had to do it. And I wasn't a writer. I was a clothing designer and a textile artist and an entrepreneur. And then I was a teacher at a Title I school. I was not really a writer when I dove into this project. But I just knew I had to do it. And I guess so it took a lot of persistence with it. They say that's what it takes.
Right.
And I didn't give up when things got tough, and I just kept going. So I think that um, her life as an example rubbed off. I'm in no way saying I am the woman she was, because
Mm-hmm.
she just philosophically had such an amazing viewpoint. I just keep thinking about it and working on it. And yeah, I do have a website with her on it. It's we're going to put some videos on of her reading her haiku. And at 97, she won an essay contest here, and it was presented at the the 8th annual Women's Leadership contest. So she was, out creating and going till the last minutes, and had her head together, and was just a great example of when one door closes in life, you don't give up, you open another one. And as her friends died off, she'd get new friends, younger
Right.
friends.
Yeah. Oh. So where can our listeners, your book is
So it's on Amazon now. It's Wave Woman. Like I said, the life and struggles of a surfing pioneer. I have a website. It's wavewomanbook.com. The book will be out April 7th. It's available through Ingram Publisher Services. So any bookstore or museum in the country can order it through them. I'm going to be doing some book signings here in Hawaii, starting Southern California, Northern California, Wilmington. I have a grandson that's graduating from Georgetown in May, and I hope to be
nice.
back there. I know. And then maybe a book signing at a couple of places in New York, but it'll all be on my website.
Okay.
So there's a lot of information on there. And actually, in ancient Hawaii, there was no sex discrimination.
Wow.
That's what we read.
Oh, goodness. Well, I thank you so much, Vicky, for joining our Positive Vibes Only segment this week to talk about your book that is coming out in April. And again, that is Wave Woman, The Life and Struggles of a Surfing Pioneer. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes ahead in the future for you as your book is released and as you continue to tell the story of your mom. So thank you so much for joining the show, weighing in on surfing, your life, your mom's life, and much more. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Renee. Thank you. It's a pleasure. So much fun.